First thing I'm going to do is test the fuel pump. There's a high pressure fuel pump and a low pressure fuel pump. I'm going to check both pressures on both pumps, and I'm also going to check the electrical connections on both. The reason is I want to make sure that I'm not losing any, I've not got an electrical fault while the engine is trying to run. Maybe I'm losing one of the electrical connections to one of the pumps, which is why it's stalling. Or maybe the fuel pressure both on the low pressure pump and on the high pressure pump, maybe I'm struggling to deliver the right fuel pressures. So by doing the two, I can eliminate that the fuel pump is operating correctly. I'm also going to disconnect the fuel line that comes from the fuel tank in the boat to the fuel pump, and I'm going to put a new fuel line into a can of petrol with fresh petrol. Literally go to the garage, fill this petrol can up with fresh fuel. Although I've got old fuel in the system, and I'll deal with that later, if I actually manage to run the engine just for a short period of time, at least I know I'll be drawing fresh fuel. So I'm always, for the next few tests I'm going to do, going to be drawing new fuel straight out the fuel tank. Now, before I continue to show you how that test goes, there's a very good set of YouTube tutorials by Man Cave Mechanic. He's great on anything to do with the fuel system. So I'm not going to show you how to connect the pressure gauges on the high pressure side and the low pressure side. I'm going to put a link on the bottom of the video to go to his YouTube channel, because he explains everything very, very well. There's no point in me redoing what he already does very well, and I used his tutorials on all my fuel related tests that I'm going to do to guide me through that. So go to that, find out how what pressure gauges you use, how you connect them, and then you'll get guided through that process very easily. Okay, so let's make a start and see what we end up with. So that test has concluded that I don't have a problem with my fuel pump. The fuel pressure both on the low side and on the high side was delivering the correct pressures. So on the low side anything between 8 and 18, and on the high side anything between 50 and 60. They're the Volvo spec ranges of fuel pressure. So that's fine. The electrical connections also fine. So throughout that short period of the engine running, I didn't lose any of the electrical connections, and the fuel pressures were maintained within those ranges. So the engine choked itself through other issues, not through the fuel pump. The other issue is possibly the old fuel that's been in the engine for 2 years, because it's been backwards and forwards with the mechanic. The mechanic said all your issues are with fuel or electrical connections, which is why I did this test first. So I've eradicated that. So I'm quite convinced I don't have an electrical connection problem on the fuel pump, don't have a fuel pump pressure problem, and I don't believe that the old fuel that's in the system, that's sitting now within the fuel injectors and the fuel rails, I don't believe that's really the issue, because the engine starts first time, runs for that short period of time like you've seen on the video. So if the old fuel was really a problem, it wouldn't start. And the more I test different things, eventually I'm going to be pulling fresh fuel out of that fuel can. So I'm going to leave that connected for all the tests and everything I do. So eventually I get a few seconds of running each time I do something with the boat. Eventually I'm going to be pulling fresh fuel through the fuel rails and the injectors anyway. So the next thing was to change the idle air control valve. I haven't done a video on that. It's very straightforward to change. I shall put up a couple of photographs of just where that is and showing you the new idle air control valve. It's 2 screws. You simply undo the electrical connection, take the 2 screws out, replace it with your new idle air control valve, reconnect, it's done. I did that, I tested the boat, and unfortunately same issue, it didn't resolve my problem. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is convincing now that the fuel pump is okay, the idle air control valve is okay. I'm going to look at the ignition. Am I losing the ignition somewhere? Is the coil breaking down? You know, is my problem on the ignition side? So that's what we're going to be looking at next.